Hi everyone and welcome. So we hope you're enjoying all of today's sessions. Chase and I are looking forward to hopefully bringing a bit of a different perspective today as we look at how to overcome the limitations of social listening with consumer intelligence. So social listening, it's been around for the best part of a decade now, and we probably all recognize the value that tools on the market bring in terms of being able to monitor, react and respond to consumers in real time, or even just using it as a post-campaign measurement tool. However, we hear probably daily from the brands that we speak to that they still have this ongoing challenge of being able to monetize the value of social data and apply the voice of the consumer to more strategic business decisions. So we're here today because we, as Skai, recognize the unrealized potential that lives in social media data, and we extract it time and time again for our clients. Take a look at this example from one of our clients who was actually looking to predict emerging features in the pet food category in order to understand which ones to prioritize their attention towards over the coming years. Sales for each feature had been increasing year on year, but as you can see, for the feature deboned chicken, there was a 13% decline in positive social sentiment. Looking back in hindsight and now having the benefit of being able to see actual sales for the period, we can see that changes in social sentiment in 2017 were actually a really good predictor for emerging trends in the pet food ecosystem over the next 2 years. But we do advise applying social data with caution. It only gets you so far. Here's another example from the food vertical where a number of years ago, sales of olive oil were declining, and we were asked to predict if this was going to continue. Now, using sales data alone, we would have predicted that actually sales would in fact keep going down. However, with the addition of social data and taking account of all of the unique predictors within it, so sentiment, like you saw on the previous example, or even the growth of conversations across different channels, etc., we actually predicted that sales would increase. And they did. You can see from the kind of big blue circle on the screen right now, however, that it was significantly more than we'd anticipated. Now, for some people in the business, it's enough to know that sales are going to increase. You can reflect your marketing messaging and you can pivot your campaigns. But for brand managers and insights teams who may be informing bigger decisions like, do we want to invest in launching olive oil as a new ingredient, or do we need to open a new factory, for example, predictive accuracy is really key to those decisions. And that's where more data sources are crucial. We can't rely on social data on its own anymore. Now, to prove this point, we've actually retrospectively recently gone back and looked at a number of pieces of work with our clients. And we've seen time and time again that while social data is useful, it's only when it's combined with other external data sources, things like product reviews, product descriptions, posts and forum posts from key opinion leaders, even things like patents where we can see where innovation is heading, that the accuracy of decisions and predictions actually starts to improve, in this case from 26% to 97%. Now, incomplete data is just one of the issues companies are increasingly recognizing with social listening platforms today. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with some of the other issues surrounding data collection. It's accuracy, the bias, how relevant it really is with so many fake and misleading accounts out there. And of course, new channels are being created all of the time. We saw the explosion of TikTok during the pandemic. It makes it harder and harder to keep up and integrate these new data sources. But data collection is really just the start of the problems. We said earlier that brands are finding it hard to monetize the data from social media, and that's because it's really hard to make it actionable for all of the reasons that you can see on the right-hand side, and I'm not going to go into them all today. Because of these reasons, we're starting to see that marketing and social teams are actually losing faith in a lot of the solutions on the market, and they're increasingly using their social scheduling tools to do the listening. They get what they need, and it really doesn't cost them the earth to get there. Brand managers and strategists, however, are thinking beyond marketing promotions about how social data can be used to bring the voice of the consumer into all of the business-wide decisions that they have influence over. And that's why, as Forrester quoted in its most recent social listening report, social listening platforms are breaking out of their social silo. They're becoming these broader consumer intelligence solutions. Teams are using social data strategically to influence decisions from innovation, be that to propose new flavors or ingredients or prioritize product pipeline, through to marketing and brand activations that go beyond listening and reacting to more strategic initiatives like aligning your brand to social culture, which we know is a huge priority for a lot of consumer brands right now, and also delivering personalized experiences. And that's really where Skai comes in. We're not a social listening tool that's added on new capabilities. We're a purpose-built consumer intelligence platform that brings together data from thousands of data sources to help brands not only monitor and understand what's being said about them and their competitors online, but it enables them to extract the context too, in order to understand what motivates, how, and why consumers talk about brands and products online and at scale. So with that quick introduction, I'm going to hand it over to Chase, who's really going to get into how we do this.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Michelle. So what I want to walk through today is actually a quick glimpse into our platform itself, actually showing you how we're connecting all these different data types and understanding how we're using our patented AI to actually enrich the data, specifically understanding the what, right? Looking at consumer discussions, of course, but adding in different data types to things such as new products, earlier signs of innovation, sentiment and perception. We can look at trend surfacing, understanding what the actual behavior is, share of shelf, or as well as product views or add to cart. Then moving on from the what, the why. Why are people actually purchasing? Why is my brand winning? Or why is a specific category actually increasing? And then understanding the who, right? Looking at some of that demographic data so we understand what's happening in consumer discussions over time. Why are consumers talking about these specific things? Who is actually talking about them? And then looking at some of that forecasting and understanding when some of these trends are actually happening now, as well as understanding how are those trends going to actually plan out within the next year or 3 years down the line. How we actually deliver the data is in a couple of ways. The first one is Ask Me. This is a high-level tool that really anyone within a brand or an agency can quickly go into our platform and search a number of different attributes, questions. They can look up their brand or a competitor brand and understand from our data lake, looking from multiple perspectives, whether that's social data or product data or earlier innovation data, maybe sales data. Just in a quick search bar-like function, you can search for really anything you want, understanding that data lake and understanding insights via that connection. The second piece is this Explore Me. This is what I'm going to be showing you today, really understanding how data analysts within the brands that we work consistently with or the agencies can actually go into our pre-built models and click into our data, understanding from different perspectives as well as connecting different data types. We have a number of ways we can configure these solutions, very much understanding how one brand views the world. It can be very different from another brand, highlighting some of that. So our ability to configure these models, as well as configure our taxonomy, and I'll go into what that looks like in just a moment, as well as what we call Connect Me. So through partnerships with Snowflake and AWS, as well as having an API, consumers that already brands that already have their internal tool that they're building out and just want to ingest some of our structured data. How do you actually take that in and quickly integrate that within your own internal data lake? So what I'll be going through now is our off-the-shelf platform here. So what I wanted to start off with specifically is what is the actual data we're connecting. So a quick, easy to see visual, what you're looking at here is this bullseye, giving you a better understanding of data that we're pulling from 3 different perspectives. The first one is consumer data, understanding data from social as well as reviews. This could be very dependent on the category. In this case, I'm looking across the entire beauty vertical. And within that beauty vertical, I can look at trends across all these categories, whether that's a body care, body hygiene, or cosmetics. Or I could get very granular and say I only want to look at trends within consumer amongst cheek palettes or concealers or color correctors, for example. We're pulling in this social data. We're also understanding key opinion leader data. Who are the influencers talking within blogs or forums, for example, or those typical influencer channels like a Twitter or an Instagram. Understanding what those consumers are actually claiming, and then understanding what are people actually reacting to and understanding the why specifically. From a commerce perspective, understanding what are products actually claiming about themselves. Looking at the product description pages on a number of different e-commerce channels. We could take the mass ones, for example, such as an Amazon or a Target, or look at some of the prestige, such as like an Ulta or a Sephora. Understanding what is out there, what are the new products actually trending in their claims, and then tying this also back to sales data. Understanding what is the direction that sales is actually going as it relates to a specific benefit or a feature or an ingredient, for example. And then this third pillar is this innovation, right? We can look at things such as patents. I can show you today, or we can look at clinical trials, or we can understand what's happening in conference data. Really, that first piece in understanding what is that configuration, if there's in a different channel that you want to pull. For example, what we're pulling in the food category or consumer electronics category is going to be very different than what you see within the beauty category. And then some people want to add additional retail sites, or they want to add additional data type. For example, survey data. We can easily ingest that, and how we actually connect all this piece of information is via our taxonomy. It's category specific, and we build this out so you can really understand, and this is the glue that puts it all together. What this helps you surface is really the why something is happening. So you can look at a high level trend and understand sales for a category is going up, or sales for a top brand is going up. But for that top brand, what are the ingredients consumers are talking about as it relates to a specific benefit, such as acne control, on a specific social channel? And how my brand is aligned on Sephora might be very different than Target or Walmart, or the messaging that consumers are talking about on Twitter or Instagram might be very different. So understanding what's actually driving my brand to be a leader, or a competitive brand to be a leader, understanding what's happening at the category level, understanding what's happening at that earlier innovation. Are there new ingredients that my competitive brands are actually filing on patents as it relates to acne control, or different features, or different skin conditions? So we can take this from a high level look, a vertical view, for example, and what you can see here is that across all of these different beauty categories, you can look at features, benefits, ingredients, skin conditions, scents, for example. You could pick something as cruelty-free, and you can see this data connectivity, whether you're looking at new products, patents, consumer data, whether that's growth or volume of social media, or reviews, or looking at how many products are actually claiming something as cruelty-free. And then you can go down to the category level and filter and understand specifically what are these category interactions. How does one trend actually cascade from a skincare into a cosmetic specifically? So we can look at this, as I mentioned, from a number of different data perspectives. We can start off small. So we can look at this just from the consumer perspective. In this case, understanding ingredients, I can look at benefits, I can look at features, or I can look at skin conditions as it relates just to the skincare landscape. So what I'm looking at here is what are the top ingredients by both size as well as the growth in consumer association across a number of different channels, which you can see in this drop down here. So again, we're looking at social media. We could be looking at comments, or Facebook, or Instagram. We could be looking at reviews such as like an Amazon or an Ulta or a Walmart. We can understand what's happening at a category level within skincare. We could get even more granular and say I only want to understand what's happening within Sephora as it relates to after sun or mists or masks. I can do that. I can even understand the who. I can look at an age group, or I can look at a gender, and then you can also look at the sentiment here. So if I were to look at hyaluronic acid, not only are we looking at across both social and reviews what's happening, or what's the volume of consumer association, but also look at the sentiment over time. We could take this from a category view, and we can also look at it from the brand perspective and understand, again, why is my brand winning, or why is a competitor brand winning? Again, we can start very high level. We can look across all of these different channels, but I want to understand specifically what are the benefits and the features consumers are most associating with a specific skin condition as it relates to a specific product form, such as like a clay or a butter or a blister pack. So we can look at this very high level, but one of the beauties of the taxonomy is that it actually is very accurate in building this rule base and really understanding and pinpointing the why, to get rid of some of the fluff that you may see in your typical word clouds, understanding what are people actually talking about, right? Understanding makeup removal or sample or organic, and understanding the sentiment, how that relates to my brand or a competitive brand for a specific channel. We can then also, and this is really the power, when you actually go from just looking at consumer conversation within the social or reviews, we can connect multiple data types. And what you're seeing here is you're looking at product claims versus consumer discussions. And what this allows you to do is it takes you away from just the silo of understanding social, but then we pull it back and look at the entire category from a product perspective as well. In this case, I'm looking at features, whereas before I was looking at ingredients. You can see what are the features such as professionally recommended, understanding what are consumers demanding within the skincare ecosystem versus what are not many products actually claiming. If you can imagine, if I have a specific SKU within my portfolio that I'm trying to promote that has one of these features that I can claim, such as a professionally recommended, or we could take antibacterial, for example, and understand where is there this unmet need? Who should I actually push this unmet need to? Understand if I were to just select a channel here, what's the unmet need on Sephora? And what are the SKUs I should activate on that channel might be different than the Walmart or an Amazon, for example. So we went from just looking at it from a consumer perspective, from a category. We then went from a brand. We're connecting product versus consumer discussions really to understand that white space. And then we can put all of this data together, right? Where I'm going again, consumer, product, and consumer. And now we're pulling in key opinion leader posts. We can pull in consumer posts. We can pull in patent data. We can pull in product claims data. And we can also pull in sales data, which is really cool, right? We can pull in data sources from both offline as well as online data sources. And what we're allowing you to do is really understanding the why something is happening via our taxonomy. So going beyond, you can understand easily from one of these sources what's happening at a category level as far as sales. You know your own product sales and which SKUs are doing well. But from the category perspective, what are the benefits or the features or the ingredients that are actually driving these sales? So whereas before I saw this huge spike in a specific feature or a specific type of packaging, I understand that was unmet need. There's not much innovation coming around. There's not too much new product activity. And then I want to do this full circle activity and understand, is this new feature or an ingredient actually increasing in sales as well? And should I activate it on it? And really the power of putting all of these different data types together and how do I go about activating this from both a marketing innovation as well as a product innovation perspective, I could do this prediction, right? And this is just one of the models that we can build. All of this is very configurable. So if you want to see this data in a different way and you want to just have a quick way to log in and take a screenshot and add it or download the underlying data, you can definitely do that. But what we're doing here is we have a monitoring system. And we're connecting all these different data types to actually predict what is consumer demand going to be in 1 year down the line. And you can see there's a number of different little bubbles here, looking from different things such as anise or adaptogens or recyclable packaging or theming. And here I'm within the beverage ecosystem, and you can look at that. We're crawling all this data from a number of different categories. And what this allows you to do, again, is that you can see what are the benefits, the features, the ingredients that are actually increasing. So as I was mentioning, the power of connecting all those different data types, whether that's key opinion leaders or consumer discussions or product claims, we can accurately create this prediction monitoring system to actually understand what is consumer demand going to be in 1 year out. Why this is so important to connect this data is that we can build models not just relying on consumer data and understanding a regression model just reliant on that social information, or just looking at prediction, whether that's sales data. Before, Michelle showed that example of olive oil specifically, and saying if we were just reliant on one data type, sales data specifically, we'd be very inaccurate in actually understanding which way sales were actually going to go in a year or 3 years down the line. But being able to connect all of these different data types, and we can understand signals, all of a sudden there's like a new trend in Reddit, or all of a sudden there's a spike in product claims as it relates to a specific demand space, such as sustainability. We can put all this information together and see from a number of different attributes or a number of different predictors that you can see here. And I can select on caramel, for example, but you can select on really any of these ingredients, benefits, or features, such as like a zinc or a magnesium or natural flavorings. In this case, I'm within the beverage ecosystem. We can select on something such as caramel and understand the explainability. Why is caramel actually increasing? Is it because of social discussion volatility? Is it an active presence in active products? Is it social channels that's specifically focused on, or is it a rating? We have over 1,000 of these predictors that are built in within our machine learning model that can really identify when a trend is beginning to manifest, how it's beginning to manifest, and why it's beginning to manifest to make sure that you're actually activating. As you can see here, we have these like little bubbles that have green, yellow, red, and understand, and we call it the monitoring system because all of a sudden we saw caramel is fulfilling this prediction that it's going to go up and understanding the why. And then we could scroll down and understand caramel specifically, who are the brands most associated with it? what are the product types being most associated with this caramel? So if we have a bunch of SKUs within our brand, how should we activate on this? And then we can also get down to the product level specifically and say, who are the top products within caramel and what are the SKUs I should actually activate on based on both the saturation of product claims versus where are consumers actually discussing my product as it relates to my selection above and understanding what are the product types I should put forth. So I hope that gives you a better understanding of how we're actually connecting all these different data types, much beyond just social data, pulling in, for example, key opinion leaders or earlier innovation, sales data, to give you this really full big picture. And then what that eventually allows you to do is more accurate prediction. So I hope that's very helpful. And thank you very much for your time, and more than happy to take questions.